Jiyan has returned as the limited banner character for the second half of the 1.3 update for Wuthering Waves, and since I didn't make a guide when he debuted back in 1.0, I'm going to cover what weapons to use, best echo sets, what skills prioritize, and more. For his combat rules, he's a main damage dealer with having higher heavy attack damage and traction, which is what pulls targets in. If you're debating on pulling for him, his strengths do include having a very strong resonance liberation, not only just for damage, but with how big the AoE is, you can crowd control enemies very easily, and his combos are pretty easy to understand. Now, he does have some weaknesses, including having to have some energy regen in your substats to be able to use your resonance liberation because the resonance cost is 125. And the second one is that most of his damage is going to be from his resonance liberation. And for number 3, this is just a thing personally for me after playing with him since 1.0, is that in comparison to someone like Jinshi, his inner gameplay is not that great. So if you're someone who likes using, Jinshi or Zezha, I wouldn't recommend him for the inner gameplay style specifically. And if you want to get him up to max level, here are all the materials you're going to need. For your weapon options, Jiyan uses the Broad Blade, and the best in slot is going to be his signature Verdant Summit. For its main stats, you get a flat attack and a crit damage percentage bump. And with this perk, Swordsworn, you get an attribute damage bonus on top of every time you use an intro skill or a resonance liberation, you get a heavy damage attack bonus up to a certain percentage, stacking up to 2 times. And the reason this is important is because after you cast the resonance liberation, every attack after that is considered heavy attack damage during the duration of the resonance liberation. That's why this sword is so good for him. If you don't have his sword, the standard 5-star Lustrous Razor is a good option, giving a flat attack and attack percentage bump. And with its perk Stormy Resolution, you do get an energy regen bump, so you might not have to focus some substats on energy regen. But when you cast your resonance skill, your resonance liberation damage bonus is increased by 14%, stacking up to 3 times. You could also use Jinshi's signature sword, the Ages of Harvest, giving a flat attack and crit rate percentage bump. His perk gives a percentage damage bonus to all attributes and has a stacking resonance skill where if you hit a certain amount of basic attacks and then use your resonance skill, it can do more damage. If you don't have any of these 5-star swords, don't worry, there are a couple of 4-star ones you can use. The first one being Autumn Trace, which you can get from the Pioneer Podcast Season Pass. It's going to give you a flat attack and a crit rate percentage bump. Plus, this perk gives you a stacking percentage bump each time you deal basic attack or heavy attack damage. And the other 4-star sword you can use is the Helios Cleaver, giving a flat attack and attack percentage bump. For Jiyan's best echo set, you definitely want 5P Sierra Gale, which is going to give the increase to your arrow damage, and when you use an intro skill, it increases your arrow damage even more. For your 4-cost echo, you want the Barangol with either crit rate or crit damage as the main stat. The reason you want to use this echo is because once you complete the follow-up slam attack, it actually increases the current character's arrow and heavy attack damage, which is perfect for Jiyan. For your 2 3-cost echoes, arrow damage bonus is recommended, and for your 2 1-cost echoes, attack percentage. For your echo substats, once you have about 15% extra energy regen, you can focus on crit rate and crit damage on top of heavy attack damage bonus, attack percentage, and then flat attack. I'm still working on perfecting my echo set, but here's what I'm using. For what skills to upgrade first with Jiyan, I'd highly recommend first you do Resonance Liberation, then Forte Circuit, Resonance Skill, Intro Skill, and then lastly, Normal Attack. And here are the materials you're going to need to upgrade all of these skills. Like I said, his Resonance Liberation is probably the most important part of his kit, so once you use it, Jiyan will enter Qinglong mode, where his basic attack, heavy attack, and dodge counter are all replaced with the specific heavy attack Lance of Qinglong. As long as you tap or hold down your basic attack button, it will perform the 3 consecutive attacks, and like I said, all of these attacks are now considered heavy attack damage. And his Forte Circuit is very important as well because this determines some damage bonuses on top of whether you perform his Resonance Liberation Emerald Storm Prelude or the finale version. His Forte bar is based on what's called Resolve. Now, Jiyan can hold up to 60 Resolve, and you gain it by using the normal attack and the intro skill. Now, if you don't hit a target within 15 seconds, the bar will start gradually decreasing. Now, what's cool is that when Jiyan uses his Resonance skill and he has 30 or more Resolve, he actually consumes Resolve to increase the damage of his Resonance skill by 20%. And if you're in Jiyan's Resonance Liberation and you use the Resonance skill, it actually gains that damage bonus as well. Now, if you remember what I said about his Resonance Liberation, it has 2 forms. The first one is Prelude, but if you have 30 or more resolve and you cast your Resonance Liberation, it performs the Emerald Storm Finale version. So instead of just performing the animation when the Resonance Liberation is activated, he actually launches an arrow attack that is considered heavy attack damage, and it can be cast in midair. For his normal attack, he does have 5 consecutive basic attacks and variety of heavy attacks and mid-air attacks as well. And his intro skill actually spawns Jiyan mid-air, dealing damage to the target. For his outro skill, Discipline, when the incoming Resonator's heavy attack hits a target, Jiyan will summon a lance to launch a coordinated attack, dealing arrow damage equal to 313.4% of Jiyan's attack. That's very specific. The attack lasts for 8 seconds and can be triggered once every second up to 2 times. For your left and right column skills, you get a crit rate increase on top of an attack percentage increase, but I want to talk about the inherent skills. The first one is Heavenly Balance, so after you cast the intro skill, Jiyan's attack is increased by 10% for 15 seconds. And his second inherent skill, Tempest Taming, when Jiyan's attack hits a target, his crit damage is increased by 12% for 8 seconds. Now let's talk about Jiyan's Resonance Chain and if it's worth getting multiple copies of him to upgrade him. As you can see, I have him at S2 right now. I would definitely like S3, but I gotta save all my pulls and all my Astrite for when Camellia comes out. For his S1 Benevolence, you get an extra Resonance skill attack, plus the resolve cost gets decreased by 15. For his S2 Versatility, after casting your intro skill, Jiyan gains 30 resolve and his attack is increased by 28% for 15 seconds, and this can be triggered once every 15 seconds. His S3 Spectation, so when you use your Resonance skill, your Resonance Liberation, or your intro skill, his crit rate is increased by 16% and his crit damage is increased by 32% for 8 seconds. His S4 Prudence, so when you use your Resonance Liberation, the heavy attack damage bonus for all your team members is increased by 25% for 30 seconds. For his S5 Resolution, his outro skill gains an additional damage multiplier of 120%, and when Jiyan attacks hit a target, his attack is increased by 3% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 15 times, and the effect can be maxed out after he uses his intro skill. For his S6 Fortitude, every time you use your heavy attack, your intro skill, or your resonance skill, Jiyan gains 1 stack of momentum, stacking up to 2 times, and then when you use your Resonance Liberation Emerald Storm Finale specifically, it will consume all the momentum, and each stack consumed increases the damage multiplier of his Resonance Liberation by 120%. From all that information, your best stopping point would be S3 if you want to get that many copies of him. You do get the crit rate and the crit damage percentage bump, but if you're a whale and you have a lot of pulls to spend, S5 and S6 are pretty good as well. For Jiyan's best team options, if you're a free-to-play player, pairing him up with Yang Yang and Baizha is going to be your best option. Having Yang Yang provide the extra resonance energy for Jiyan so he can use his Resonance Liberation sooner on top of the extra traction from her skills, and then Baizha, obviously, as your healer. For the heavy attack boost damage, pairing him with Mortefi and Shorekeeper is going to be your best option. Having Mortefi use his coordinated attack with his Resonance Liberation on top of having the heavy damage amplification buff on outro, and then with Shorekeeper with her Resonance Liberation getting the healing, the attack bonuses, plus the crit rate and crit damage bumps. Or if you want to do an all-Aero team, pairing Jiyan with Alto and Jiyan Shin is a decent option. All in all, Jiyan is a very strong main DPS character and is the only Aero option at the moment. Now, I have seen people use Alto and Jiyan Shin as main DPS Aero characters, and that's totally cool. But Jiyan is just way too strong and has some of the best crowd control in the game by far. Like I said, my only real gripe with him is some of his in-air attacks. They don't feel as accurate or even as coordinated as someone like Jinshi or Zezha. I feel like you lose so much stamina and the attacks are very slow, so I do recommend trying to use him on the ground as much as possible. Now, I'm a Chang Li main, and the one thing I like about her Resonance Liberation is that even if I'm not super close to the target I want to use it on, it pretty much auto-tracks to right in front of that character. The issue with Jiyan is that if you're using the finale version of his Resonance Liberation for, you know, the Slam Dragon attack, is that unless the target is like right in front of you, I swear this thing misses. When we had the Tower of Adversity with the Fallacy of No Return, that guy dodged my Resonance Liberation so many times, and it was very frustrating. So I wish maybe we had like a little bit better, you know, auto tracking with his Resonance Liberation finale, but it is what it is. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my 1.3 Jiyan build guide. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you going to be pulling for Jiyan, or if you're trying to get Yoo-Hoo as well? Again, we have the new 4-star character. I do have a build video for her as well if you find her kit a little bit confusing. In any event, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other Wuthering Waves content we have coming out here on the channel. If you want to catch any live streams, we go live here on the channel and also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. And if you want to join my Discord, we have people talking about Wuthering Waves on top of other games, plus PC fantasy tech, anime, and more. Lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription where you're going to get access to exclusive emotes, monthly badges, and other cool things, including access to all of my long-form videos early. So if you would like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and it'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next video.